Immigration reform, obviously foreign-born investment is very important to the economy here in Silicon Valley. Congresswoman Lofgren, along with Congressman Gutierrez, they recently sponsored legislation, EB Jobs Act, to open up pathways for foreign-born investors. Immigration reform, moving forward, it's one of those issues that's very divisive, again, controversial. What do you see the future, or is there a future for, I hate to use the word comprehensive because...
well, there has to be, because we have an immigration system that's broken. I don't think anyone disagrees that we have an immigration system that's broken. And if you look at my district, we have a big technology community, we have a big agriculture community, I have a border, I kind of have every piece of immigration that is part of our challenge. And it's kind of like a Venn diagram, right? If you try to address one issue, you end up actually impacting other areas, and a lot of people and families and businesses are impacted by multiple pieces of immigration law, not just necessarily one particular issue. So there has been an attempt to try to do comprehensive reform, because really we know some of the fundamentals, we might need to make fundamental changes. And so if you kind of build that foundation and build on top of it, how do you do that? If you are just kind of making point changes, you might change something that actually impacts something else over here. And so how do you continue to deal with that change? Comprehensive reform is important, and it's brought a strong coalition together of business, labor, farmers, farm workers, law enforcement, the faith-based communities. It has brought folks together, and that's why we had such a big push and I think a big chance to pass comprehensive immigration reform last Congress. The conversation has become so divisive now on all types of immigration reform that it is really hard to move anything. And obviously, if you look at individual pieces, whether it's on EB or H-1B, on technology or agriculture, H-2A alone, if you move individual pieces, you break a little bit of the coalition that's been pushing, because someone says, hey, you're addressing this issue, but what about my issue over here? And so you end up in a place where it makes it a little bit harder sometimes to get as much critical mass to get legislation passed. It absolutely needs to happen, though. It is affecting, between the impact on the economy, and I think the Congressional Budget Office was clear. If we passed the legislation that I helped introduce last Congress, it would have a net positive impact on our economy, besides all the positive impacts it would have on just people and families and students in our communities, and yet we're struggling. And I do think this is one where if we just got legislation on the floor, we would get it passed. But given the political environment right now, I think that it's going to be hard to move any piece of legislation, because we just have folks who don't want to touch it, especially during a presidential election. There's always an election, there's always a reason not to move, but we absolutely need to continue, and we need to continue to push, because there's, like I said, I think there is broad support if we were just allowed to vote on that legislation. So somehow we've got to get that across the finish line.